I'm going to play Neo Geo, the King of Fighters 98. Believe it or not, this game is about 20 years old, and we are still paying about $10 to buy it. This thing used to cost about $600 when it originally came out on the Neo Geo. But what I really want to test today, how good is the up, down, left, right controls? Because as you can see, this is not a D-pad. On the Nintendo Switch, you have these 4 buttons which are up, down, and left and right, but they don't actually affect each other. They don't rock around like a normal D-pad would. Is this good enough for playing King of Fighters, or, you know, fighting games in general? Street Fighter, Blaze Blue, or Blaz Blue, whatever you want to call it. What characters do you want to see? Let's have the man, Terry Bogard. You know, I'm really into this character right now, Chris. I think if I hold down the start button, I get Secret Chris. Also, let's have Mr. Kusanagi. The first mode we're going to try is with the controllers, the JoyCons connected to the Switch, and I'm getting myself beaten. I will let you know if I tried to do a move and it didn't function. I didn't manage it. Sometimes I don't get a move just because I've forgotten how to do various moves, but looks like it's going okay. Let's do a super combo. Okay, so maybe it's just that I'm used to it. But actually that's good news, isn't it? I think it's good news that you can get used to these D-pad controls. It's in a weird place. As you can see, I'm kind of balancing my hand down here. I'd like my hand to be up here, but it's actually down here right now. But it does work fine. It's just not amazing. Like, there are times when I try to do certain combos and it doesn't work. Let's do another super combo here. Got him! Okay. It does work, but you can't really rest your hand on it the way that you would normally. Normally I would have my hand resting on it like this, and I would just rock my thumb around like this, but at the moment I'm kind of having my thumb come down on it at a bit of an angle, basically, to make it more pressable. So basically you can get used to it, but, you know, obviously it's not ideal. Hopefully Nintendo will come up with a Joy-Con that actually has a real D-pad in the future. I don't know if they've already announced anything like that, but as far as I can tell, they haven't announced anything of the sort. Alright, Terry's down. Now I want to do test number 2, and test number 2 is to see whether I can play with the analog stick. Now I tried it a little bit earlier today. Essentially, if you remember the Neo Geo Pocket Color, there was a joy pad a bit like this, except it clicked, so you actually knew when you had clicked left, when you had clicked right. On this one, because it's a smooth analog stick, it's like, you know, it's like playing Street Fighter with an analog stick, which most people don't want to do, and it's mostly because the clicks aren't there. Yes, it's like an arcade stick because it actually moves left and right, but it's unfortunately not like an arcade stick in that it doesn't click and you don't have that feedback to know whether you have actually successfully done the command. Not a big fan of the analog stick, but as you can see, I am able to do moves. Oh, I missed again! Unbelievable. Still won though. What I'm going to do is do my third test, which is to take the Joy-Cons off. And this is the real strange test. Hold on, let me just move my camera down a bit. Alright, so this is test number 3. We're going to see if we can play with the Joy-Cons disconnected. There is an issue that I will point out right before we start, in that now you don't have the console to balance your controller. So normally you would have a bit of the controller here, and while you're pushing up with your left hand, you can be pushing down with here. But now, pushing down on the controller actually rotates the controller. Let's see how it goes. Oh, I already missed my move. I didn't try to do that move, and oh, okay, I got a combo. You can get used to this configuration. It's just, it feels really awful. And if you do the Shoryuken move to the left, it's like near impossible, because look, I'm like trying to left and then down left. It's like, oh, wow! It will be easier when you're on the right side to do certain moves, and easier on the left side to do certain moves. Okay, analog stick is much nicer on Joy-Con only mode, when Joy-Con separated mode. Basically, you'll want to go with the analog stick rather than the D-pad, and that's because pushing down on the button causes the Joy-Con to rotate to the right a little bit, and I'm not a big fan of how that feels. Alright, one more thing to test is I want to see how it feels with the Joy-Con accessory. This is 100 times better because I can support the controller with my right hand and still be able to do all the moves that I want. Again, not ideal to have these buttons instead of a D-pad, but you can learn how to get good with it. And in the end, I don't think you'd be at, you know, a huge disadvantage. It just feels uncomfortable, that's all. Now, the next thing I want to test with the Joy-Con in sort of controller mode is whether I can control the analog stick And I missed the couple moves there using the analog stick. Here's something I've just discovered, is that having my hands close together is making the analog stick harder to use. In fact, when you're in Joy-Con mode, or this controller mode, I don't know what it's called, it's actually quite nice to use the the makeshift D-pad, whatever you want to call these 4 buttons here together. That's interesting, I wasn't expecting that. Super Combo! Blue Mary. So this is my conclusion. I would say that the analog stick is not great in Joy-Con mode because the controller is a little bit too small, but in actually D-pad mode, using the D-pad controls, it's actually not that bad. Serviceable. There we go. Okay, I have one more thing I want to show you, and it's when you're in actual Switch mode, when you've got the Joy-Cons attached to the Switch. When you're playing, you'll actually sometimes have your fingers here on the shoulder buttons. And when you have your fingers on the shoulder buttons and you're playing, you'll find yourself like adding credits to the game. Can you see credits going 16, 17, 18? So if you leave your fingers up there, it's very easy to accidentally click them when you're trying to press buttons down here, because just to press this button, in order to get it to respond, you end up having to like clench the whole controller like this. Can you see? I'm kind of accidentally pressing the shoulder buttons. You know, maybe you can get used to that, but it's just something to keep in mind that it doesn't come naturally. You accidentally press these buttons, so remember to have your fingers on the back of the console, like so that you don't actually accidentally press the shoulder buttons while fighting. Otherwise you end up doing stuff like pressing start or adding credits until you've got like 35 credits, which is a problem because if you were trying to get through this whole game with only 2 credits or only 3 credits, then you won't be able to know whether you actually managed or not because you keep accidentally pressing the credits button. Now, I will show you how to fix this. You can go into button settings and you can actually change the start button and add credits button to both be here on the right side if you're finding that the clenching only happens here on the left. Alright guys, so that's all I wanted to show you, is just a quick test of the D-pad controls and the joystick controls. It's a little bit like the Neo Geo, but it doesn't click, so it's nowhere near as satisfying. Yeah, I do find I pressed these buttons here by accident, so you may want to remap those buttons. I also showed you quickly how it's, how it feels to play with the controllers detached, and yes, it works, but the problem is here, because the controller seems to rotate when you put pressure down on the button. So that's something to keep in mind. Essentially what you really want to do is buy a Pro Controller, but the point is, even if you have a Pro Controller, you can't use it when you're on the train unless you've got a special magic way to have the console balance itself. So essentially you're stuck with the Joy-Cons if you're playing in portable mode, and I think it's serviceable. You can get used to it. I wouldn't play with, the left Joy-Con detached too often, unless I was using the analog stick. Essentially, playable. Much more playable than I was expecting, but, I would prefer if they just came out with a Joy-Con with a D-pad. So please, Nintendo, if you're listening, we want Joy-Cons with a D-pad. In fact, I would like one with a proper clicky analog stick. But this is one of the cool things about Switch, is that they can make anything that we really want, as long as there's enough demand and they think that enough people will buy it. We could say, please make a Joy-Con with a clicky analog stick like the Neo Geo Pocket Color, or make it with a proper D-pad. That sort of thing is totally possible in the future, so let's let Nintendo know. Let Nintendo know by clicking the like button on this video, leaving a comment so that they know how important this feature is to us. But don't forget to comment, subscribe, share links and all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next NihongoGamer video.